Joy, what was life like for you in January when you came to Student Revival for the first time?
Well, I had started coming to Vineyard Northwest in August, and at that time, I had a really bad view of the world. I thought that everything was really hopeless. I never thought that life was going to really work out for anyone, including myself. I had a history of self-harm for about 3 years, and major depressive disorder and anxiety issues since I was younger. And life was kind of just not looking great for me. So I didn't have much hope about anyone who thought that life was like, oh, well, there's this God that makes everything in life like amazing, or he helps heal people. So I didn't have a great outlook of Christianity.
Yeah. And what was kind of like your religious affiliation at that point?
I had messed around with different religions. I was, for a few months, I went with paganism, and then for about a week, I was like Satanism, but I'm not a fan of that.
Me either.
And then, and for a while, especially when I started coming to church, and then when I started coming to the youth group in January, I was Wiccan, so that's paganism, including witchcraft in the religion.
Yeah, I remember Joy read my aura
Yeah.
like one of the first times we met.
Yep.
I called Micah afterwards. I was like, am I okay? I didn't tell you that, but Micah probably remembers. It was like a 30-minute phone call. I was like, what do I do? But anyway, and then there was kind of another big piece of your life, if you'd feel comfortable sharing, about like you were pretty outspoken about your sexuality.
Yeah. For about 4 years, I had considered myself to be switching between different sexualities in the LGBTQ community, and I considered myself to be non-binary. At the time, up until, I don't know, for a while, I considered myself to be a lesbian, and then I started having interest in other sexes, so then I considered myself to be a bisexual, so.
Thanks for sharing. And just like to be, I guess, like explicitly clear, like the way that kind of played out, like when we met, I had asked you, having heard about this, I asked you about it, and you told me that your preferred pronouns were they, them. And so that you asked me if I could use those.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the joy that we had, well, Juno at the time. And so yeah, then you came to our church, and what was it like kind of the first few times that you were here with us?
Well, just coming to morning services, I really liked the energy here, and honestly, I started talking to a lot of you guys, and you probably know who I am from then, and I was like, these are really happy people, and I wish that I could be like that. Like, you guys are really amazing. Especially some of the leaders from Student Revival, Spencer and Taylor, hi. And so I wanted to be like that, but I never thought that I could.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to summer camp. Like, you were kind of with us for about 6 months, and you came to summer camp, and you told me that when you got there, you were really wrestling with some really big questions, like, can I really be a Christian? And does God really love me as I am right now?
Yeah.
And I remember us having some conversations where you were like, yeah, like God like seems cool, and like I want to be a Christian, but like he won't accept me.
Right.
And so what was that like for you, especially that kind of first part of summer camp?
Yeah. Well, I've always had issues with feeling like unloved or unlovable. So grasping the concept of unconditional love by a God was really difficult for me. So especially being part of the LGBTQ community, I was like, that's often considered, is considered to be like a pretty big sin. And a lot of people in the Christian community are really angry about that, at least people that I have met. So, and just some of my opinions at that time really excluded me from being a typical Christian, which is something that made me feel like I couldn't be. a Christian or like loved by God. And I also felt like I wasn't good enough to fit in with like God's preference.
Yeah. And then at some point in the middle of the week, something kind of shifted for you. What kind of happened?
Yeah. So one of the people that came and talked about like a topic, it was like your identity in Christ. And the entire time I was like, honestly, it kind of offended me. And if some sermons offend you, I take that as a room for growth, as long as it's not making you too angry. But I went up to the girl who was talking about it. Her name was Christy. And she was like, "Can I pray for you?" And we stood there and prayed for like 20 minutes. And honestly, I was still a little shooken up at that point because I was a little mad. But that was really impactful. And I talked to a few of my leaders, including Jordan, about how I had felt at the time. And I have like a really supportive community at Student Revival, our youth group. And just being able to like look around and see how appreciated I was the way that I am was like a really big eye-opener for me. And so that night, the next night, I'd like gone through the day and I was like, I think that this Jesus thing is gonna work out. So we were doing testimonies, and these people were like, yeah, I had this pain, and then it was healed, and stuff like this, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll do a testimony, I don't know. So then I just jumped up, and I was like, okay. And I remember what I said. I was like, I've struggled with feeling loved by anyone, and especially God, because I've never felt like I was good enough. And so I talked to Spencer, another leader that I just said something about, and Jordan, and I decided to get baptized. And everyone was like really confused because as of 2 days ago, I didn't even believe in God. And there was a lot of crying.
So much crying.
Lots of crying.
I still cry. Trying not to right now.
So, yeah, I kind of jumped right into it.
Yeah, it was cool. And yeah, it was amazing when that last Friday when she got baptized. It was so cool. Everybody went crazy for her. Taylor and Spencer over here baptized her in the lake. And it was really powerful. And just something that really just stood out to me about what you were sharing was that like shift in where you realized like God actually loves me, and like he just does.
Yeah.
Like it, he's not like, hey, fix this up first and then I'll love you.
Right.
He's just like, I love you.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of our students and leaders that we were able to express that to you. That is like, we love you.
Yeah.
Regardless of like what your stance is or view is or whatever your experience is, and whether you're like in with Jesus or not, or following him or not, like just that, like, we love you.
Yeah.
And
I thank God every day for you guys. I would not be where I am without you.
Wow. Man. So we got about another minute here, and so I just want to like quickly like tell us, what has life been like since getting baptized and since coming home from camp?
Well, so a really small thing that I feel like has changed a lot is I had issues with drawing. Like if I did draw, it'd be really depressing, but I love art so much. And recently I have started drawing a lot more, and it's like fruitful art. It's colorful and it's not sad looking. And that made me really excited.
That's super cool.
And a few weeks after I got baptized, I just had no more interest in the female gender. So I got rid of like all of my pride stuff, and I was I just don't like girls anymore. I identify as a female now.
Yeah.
I changed my name to Joy instead of Juno. And I really want to have a future in ministry because I love telling people about God. I love being able to like share my testimony and be able to impact people's lives and be like, that's something that is reachable for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. And she prayed for somebody this week, just
Yeah.
like at a restaurant, just
Yeah.
like
I
went
was
up to
at
a
an
lady and prayed for her.
Applebee's, and I was like, I kind of feel like I need to pray for her because she seems a little stressed out, and I just did. And she was like, thank you. It was scary, but it was exciting.
And just a couple other things that like were really amazing. What has your mental health been like since then?
So I had really bad like depression issues. Like I had suicidal ideation and I self-harmed for a few years, like I said before. But ever since I got baptized, like instantly my depression levels went down, like plummeting.
There's literally a graph.
Literally, I have
that
a graph.
like she sent me a picture of this graph. It looks like a roller coaster and it just drops.
Yeah. And like I checked the dates on it, and it's the highest point is before camp, and the lowest is like now, and it's flat out. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and you were telling me this week that like you were diagnosed with like severe depressive disorder, right? And
Yeah.
they've kind of like downgraded that now even. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
So I had a major depressive disorder, and they had to up my dosage of antidepressants a lot because it was just nothing was working. And so it was pretty severe, and it just kept getting worse no matter how much medicine I was taking. So like on the graph, my levels were up to like severe depressive disorder. And now it's pretty much at like, should we be lowering her medication at this point?
Wow. It's so amazing. It's so cool. Thank you so much for sharing, Joy. Can we just give it up for Joy?